Oh, Sonny likes her music loud, so we're gonna blow us out here. So
Good morning. How's everybody?
good morning.
For those of you that were actually on the Dotzer call on Tuesday, what did you hear?
Good news, I guess.
Did you go? Okay, we can do this. I did too. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh God, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Anything else that you heard that was interesting?
Right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Places to talk to your clients. Just let them know there's still hope, but go ahead and buy that. The interest rate will eventually go down.
Absolutely. And that's perfect segue into what we're going to talk about today is like, let's take the information that we got from Dr. Dotzer on Tuesday, and then how do we implement it and be able to have conversations with our clients to get them off of stall, which is where we're at right now, and get them moving. I do want to share, there was and he spent a little bit of time on it. There was a little graph and it showed what the market did or has done during the recessions. And there were 3 of them that were on there. And I've had my license since 1999. Steve, you've had yours since 91.
87.
87. So we're old dogs. There's a few of us in the room that are old dogs and have been around for a while with Jane, Tony. I thought it was a really great slide to share that even in the Great Recession, like the worst one that we've ever had, right? Our market average price point dropped $6,000, and then it was back to even the following years. I think that's something good too. So when people start having a moment, or like, oh, what if the market goes down? Or they're waiting for the market to go down, right? Because they're going to get a better deal. Historically, that doesn't happen, right? It's not gonna happen. We'll be able to recoup any kind of, so if someone bought, let's say in February or March of this year, even if there was a slight correction, they're gonna be good to go within 2 years, right? Based on history. So I thought that one was really important. So I want you guys to use this stuff. We just got the PowerPoint presentation. We just got the recorded video of Tuesday that will go out so that you guys can see it. I think Facebook is what we're going to put the stuff on, and then we'll send the PowerPoint as well out in an email. So be looking for that. So Steve, let's talk.
Well, Sonny, what was your takeaway? Did you have something that was kind of burning for you after the? Yeah, doesn't have one.
I mean, there was a lot of things, and I am a processor. I have to go through and process things. Is anyone else like me? Like, you have to take some time and think about it, and because you kind of have your first thought of whatever, and then you have your second thought. And so my first one was hope, kind of like you, Tina. And okay, that felt really good. I felt kind of like, all right, now the numbers are behind us. And then I had to continue to process, and then it's coming up with what's next. So now that we have all of this information, how do we take that and implement what's next for us? And my key takeaways, I guess, were 3 C's: connection, consistency, and community. Because the message that I took was, it is very important that my people, that everyone that I either am currently in a relationship with or have the potential to be in a relationship with, I need to connect with them. It's my responsibility to make sure they have access to accurate information that is going to make them feel the way that I did after hearing from a professional who knows exactly what he's studying. So if I connect with everyone that I know, with my sphere of influence, with my database, then I'm doing right by them. I am in service to everyone that I know, or everyone that I could potentially know. Is it easier for me to reach out to them if I know I'm giving them accurate information that hopefully is going to make them feel better about whatever potential chaos we have around us. Yes? Then the second piece was what? What was the second C? Consistency. You can't call them just once. You can't text them just once. So it's kind of like, and I don't remember who it was that someone was reaching out to, or I think it was Jada. And she had said, you know, someone had reached out to a lead, maybe like they called him twice and that was it. Or someone was trying to reach out to a builder and they called him once and that was it. Well, they never responded. Is anyone else in the room human? Like someone calls me, you have every intention of talking to them, but what happens? Yeah, you get busy sometimes, or there's other stuff in your day where you haven't been able to reach out to them. So you've got to be consistent in your follow-up. You have to be consistent in the messaging. So it's going to be utilizing the different things and the resources that you have access to. So what is a way for you to be consistent in your communication with your database? Following up, okay, how would we follow up? DTD2, did you say that because he's in the room? Yeah, so
Person.
will you expand on what DTD2 is, David?
That's what every week you call another field and all people in your database that have that last start and that keeping contact everybody once a quarter.
Yeah, and do you call them once?
I even call and I text them, and depending on what's going on, that person might call them later on.
Yeah, and in Never Ending Referrals, you learn about the three attempt approach, because sometimes you're not going to catch them in the morning or in the day or in the evening. You'll start to learn your database and when it's best to reach out and connect with them. And so your consistent messaging needs to be key, and it needs to be various. So you could also utilize, oh, here's another C, command, right? You could maybe build out some smart plans and we can assist with that. You're going to need to reach out to everyone. And Jada isn't able to be with us this morning, but I know one of her takeaways was essentially, and who was here March 2020? Who was around? Who was in the business? Right? And did anyone else have question marks? Kind of rolling. We were all just walking around with little question marks over our heads. Like, what's going to go on? What's going to happen? And, you know, for Jada, one of the key things that she experienced was engaging here and utilizing the community. And that's the third C. Your community around you is going to be what supports you through any unknowns. And like Jada said, it was locking arms with one another, with each other, with your peers, with everyone in this room to figure out how you're going to get through this together. Because no matter what is going on around us, you have each other, you have everyone here on the leadership team to support you, because, you know, Steve's working from 4 in the morning to 10 at night to make sure that you have access to the information that you need. So your community is vital, your real estate community, and then also creating a community with your database. That's what it's going to boil down to. You all likely got into this business why? To have
Your
fun?
perfect life, make money. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all right.
make money.
Make some money.
Yeah.
Because
And
we
like,
like people.
because you like people. Exactly. You like people most of the time.
Yeah. Less lately.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably, and you will find when you have maybe struggled with people, it's because it's the unknown. It's the uncertainty. So when there is uncertainty that we experienced over the last 2 years, it was, here's what we know. We don't know what's going to go on with this pandemic thing, but here's what we know right now. And that's what you need to do for all of your clients. And that's where we want to come in and assist you. There are so many things that are going around, but you just got to focus. Focus on what's in front of you.
Let's go to work here. Who wants to be one bad mofer? Say yes.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? It sounds naughty, doesn't it? It's not. Okay. What's MOFR stand for? Somebody tell me if you've heard it. I heard couple of the words. Make offers for immediate response. MOFR. So one bad MOFR. Here's something Gary said recently. He said, and MOFR comes from the Shift book. Gary wrote about this during the shift. Last time we had a shift, and he said, making offers for immediate response. It's a marketing term. And so you put an offer out there for people to respond. Now, could they say no or not respond? That is a response, but we go out and we make offers. And what Gary said, he said recently, the person with the right MOFers communicated the right way to the right people is the person that's going to win the game today. And so what I took away from Dot's Hour was that, okay, we've got all kinds of messages and offers based upon what he shared with us that we can put out to, as Sonia said, our database, to our relationships, our marketing to a geographic farm, Facebook ads, Facebook posts, YouTube videos. I mean, what your message matters, where you send your message matters, and are you making offers for people to engage? And an offer is kind of telling people, here's the opportunity maybe of the market and an action you might desire to take. So let's talk MOFers.
Yes,
You want to talk MOFers?
I do.
Let's go MOFerize. So we're going to go back through some of the slides, and I've added some slides to give you more perspective. If you don't have, does everybody have the handout of the slides? If you don't, raise your hand, we'll get them to you. And so here's the interesting thing. So Dot's Hour started off with this. He said, tectonic experiments today. And he said, massive monetary policy, fiscal policy, stimulus being put in the economy after and during a rapid recovery. Now that means has that been part of what's fueled inflation? Say yes.
Yep.
Defunding of oil and gas industry, which means high gas prices, fueling inflation. Unprecedented labor shortage. A lot of that is not as much, there's this thing about people sitting on the couch. What it really is, it's partly some of that, but mostly it's a demographic shift. I mean, you've got baby boomers moving into retirement, and you have not enough people coming up to fill the void that's left by people. Okay, can y'all hear us now? Okay, I think we're good.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So here's the thing. How much of that can you control? None of it. No, like you to you can't control any of it. So are they hearing us now? Yeah, it looks like they are because the thing's on. So you can't control any of it. So the focus has to be on what you can control. What is the opportunity? What can I control? So we went through this slide already. This is a great conversation. And before we're done today, we're going to tell you about an opportunity where every week we're going to give you MOFers and perspective on the market so that you can kind of tilt your message out to the people that are in your database. We're going to give you tools, we'll give you graphs, we'll give you messaging. Your job is you just got to get it what? You got to get it freaking out there. And we're going to help you with that too. We're going to tell you about how we're going to help you with that. And if we'll do all of it, will you promise to get it out? Yeah, so to get that message out there. So and this was really cool. I mean, Dot's Hour walking through this, Amy, you spoke to this. It went from 207, it was the peak at the moment, then went to 201 as we went into the recession, and then bounced right back. Now it was kind of flat in there for the most part, but notice what did happen. What did happen is the amount of sales went down. So was every realtor benefiting? Even though prices didn't go down dramatically for any period of time, volume of sales activity went down. So that means you've got to be proactive to make sure that you get your what? Unfair share. Not your fair share.
Unfair.
Your unfair share. This is the time when market share gets taken. And by the way, those that surrender it never get it back. And it's when you have this opportunity to show up in such a cool way to the people that you have relationships with. As a newer agent, you take the tools we're going to give you and you start putting it out there, and you look like the smartest person they know in real estate. And they're going, man, she gets this thing. He gets this thing, right? It becomes extremely powerful. So I wanted to show you this graph as well. And, what happened in the worst of times in the Great Recession nationally, that was a San Antonio graph. Nationally, it went from 222 to 166 at the low. And that's, somebody got a calculator? Divide 166 by 222. Who can do that for me? She's doing it right here.
7.5.
I'm sorry?
7.54.
Okay, so essentially the market dropped 24% in the worst recession in history nationally. Who got hit the hardest? Florida, Las Vegas, Phoenix. Texas didn't get hit much at all. And there's the dynamics that really impacted that the worst were in those markets that led to a national change of that. And yet look where we've gone. I mean, this long-term graph should tell a consumer that over time, real estate is a what? Consistent, safe investment. This is a 4% ongoing return graph. And we can tell a story with, or San Antonio graph tells a better story. So you've got that to look at. This is just another graph without that information on the side. Just wanted you to have that look at it. So let's talk interest rates. Y'all have heard this thing, y'all seen it on Facebook, marry the house, date the rate, yes? That's kind of a cool buzz phrase. What'd you hear Dotzer say about interest rates?
I'm gonna go up a little more, and then they're gonna go down, only maybe 2%.
Yeah, I mean, he predicted that if the Fed screws up the economy enough, we'll see 2% maybe in 2 years. If they don't screw it up, now there was an article I read this morning that says, it was a Wells Fargo study, I think, that was the builder study. Anyway, it was whoever it was. That economists are going are now recalibrating inflation fears such that they're going, it may not be as bad as we're thinking. A lot of people are thinking it could be. They're watching the bond markets and it's way over my head. And yet the net effect of it was it may not turn out to be as bad as some fear. Could it? We don't know. If it doesn't get real bad, mortgage rates may not have to stimulate the economy because it'll just kind of level out, and mortgage rates maybe only come down to 4, or they may stay where they are. And this is a good conversation right here, because when you look at this, and I don't know if we can move that. Can we move those pictures so we can see what's underneath them? Is when you look at this, going back to 1990, what's the historical median or average interest rate? 5.97. Where do we sit today? 5.5, 5.7. And so right now we're actually below historical norms. Why were they at 2.96% for an average for 2021? Sorry? COVID, right? Fears that the economy was going to crater, so they did all these artificial things to make sure that it didn't. Cheap money, everybody buy a house. So all these reasons propping up the economy after the Great Recession, monetary policy because inflation wasn't a thing, that interest rates could stay low. And they've kind of found that kind of floor, and they continue just to stimulate the economy. And then particularly when COVID hit, we really saw these low lows. And we may never see them again. And so I think the conversation with a buyer, let's think about, is marry the house, date the rate, could you build a MOFR around that and say, find out why this may be absolute the best time in the next 5 years, interest rate wise, to buy a home? Because if you get it at 5.5 and it goes up, you look like a what today? A smart home buyer. Because what are the other reasons you might buy right now? What do they have that they didn't have 6 months ago? I'm sorry? I didn't catch that, David. Oh, okay. Yeah. There's that. Yeah. They have choices.
More inventory.
More inventory. Right. They got choices. And how many people sat on the sideline because they didn't have choices? I think that's one of the biggest buying opportunities in the market right now. And you know, the fact that the rate is higher, you're going to look brilliant if you buy today and you had a good choice, and you got a home you wanted, and the rates go up. If you buy today and you got a good choice, and by the way, you got an inspection, you got, you know,
You got attributed,
didn't have to do an appraisal waiver.
right? You might have got to negotiate some repairs.
Yeah.
You got some repairs.
Yeah,
Might be cleaned.
might be clean.
Might be clean. Yeah, you know, it's like, okay, you'll have all this, and you're going, and even if rates stayed the same, you look brilliant because you got a house you really wanted. If they come down, you get to refinance. So there's really no lose in this. Now, if you sit around, now the evidence here, we go back to the other graph, you start to tie these two together. Can you see tying these two together? What happens? What happens when you tie the two together? When you go back to that average sales price in a recession graph and this graph, what's the conversation with the buyer? You're in a safe zone. You're still, and I'm going to show you why you're still in a safe zone too. You got so much ammo. And what Dats Iris shared with you, this came from Gary's vision speech. And then I've got some other things that came out in just the last few days that are going to blow your mind. Ready for mind blow?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go here. And of course, this is just a longer term perspective. Who in here wants to compete for having the highest interest rate on a house that you purchased? Anybody? What percent?
18%.
Holy crap, Batman! 18%.
Might be the winner. Yeah, I was 9.
Wow. Well, you know, mine was 13.5. So, and it was right there in, when was it? It was 82, 83. So it was somewhere in there. So 13.5 was my interest rate back then. And by the way, people thought they were getting a deal after coming off of 18% in 81 or 16% in 81. And yet you look before that, you know, there was 8s and 9s. And then after that era, you know, 10s were pretty normal till 1990. And then you didn't get sub 7 until 1998. And there was actually a recession in the, and of course, where we had a recession around 2001, that was called the what? Does anybody remember what triggered that recession? Tech fall, the tech wreck, right? So the tech bubble busted and we had a recession and they dropped rates, you know, to stimulate the economy, but they didn't go down terribly. They went into the 5s and we didn't get sub 5 until 2010. And that was coming out of this Great Recession, still stimulating the economy. So when you look at this, is there any precedent for 2% and 3% rates in here over the long term? There's a MOFR that says today is actually normal. How to benefit from today and cash in on tomorrow if things change. You know, there could be, you could build a story around this. Single family home starts. This was Dats Iris graph. Too much stuff there. So can I give you a different graph? Here's Gary's graph. So Dats Iris talked to this. What is that 1 million homes a year mark? Does anybody who can tell us what that represented? What did you hear?
That's what we need to support the normal growth. Of the population.
Normal growth, population needs, taking housing stock out of the market. We need 1 million housing starts a year. Now, before we had the bust, we were exceeding that. And that inventory, and then of course, you know, in 2008, we went dramatically below 1 million. That was okay. We had a surplus. So in the first 2 years into the Great Recession, well, that took care of the surplus that we had. And then we had 8 years of dramatically below 1 million to the tune of 3 million housing starts that needed to happen that didn't happen. Is 3 million a lot? And we did until last year exceed 1 million, and we only did that by 123,000, and we have a 3 million deficit. Now that's national.
It's all these boomers hanging on to their homes.
Let me put that out there. Right?
Renting them.
Well, here's an interesting graph. Now, this didn't come from Dotsauer. This is a different one. And this is single-family housing permits today versus the peak. So, what has happened since, the peak was 2002 to 2008. And San Antonio is running 25% below what it was at its peak. And it wasn't overbuilt at that time. And yet we're running 25% lower in housing starts than we were during that peak era leading up to the housing bubble. Now look at Austin and Dallas. They've actually gotten ahead of their peaks. That's why they have a lot more inventory kind of brewing, maybe a little bit right now. And so this is a graph that kind of validates the next thing, which is this is San Antonio Business Journal on Monday. San Antonio needs 65,000 more homes to have a healthy housing market. 65,000 homes. The typical development is how many homes? 100 to 200?
Yeah.
How many developments are going to have to get developed that aren't developed? Is there enough dirt developed right now to even do a fraction of this? What was Gary's thing he said recently? He said, buy dirt. This is why you buy dirt. This is the opportunity. Now, I talked to a commercial land guy earlier this week. I said, tell me what's going on out there. And he said developments that we have in early engineering phase are hitting the pause button. Builders are pulling back on buying dirt right now because they're playing it safe, and their money people are playing it safe. Money people get very conservative in times of change. They all remember what happened in 2007 and 8, particularly bankers and Wall Street, and they start making up a big story, and they look at it more globally, initially versus locally. So what he's telling me, he goes, I think our best, chance here in the next couple of, 12, 18 months is going to be developers, not builders buying dirt, and it's going to be very limited. Big pause button. The right stuff has still got opportunity. It might have to be discounted. He said the biggest challenge is the builders, and y'all going to talk about this at team meeting today. The builders really kind of price themselves, these arbitrary price increases that they kept making. But we've got 65,000 from being a healthy housing market. And it's going to take years to get that deficit. Yes. Well, the healthy housing market would be that overall there's like the housing market as a whole has probably 5 months of inventory.
5 to 6,
Yeah, that'd be about normal, 5 to 6. And then, and we're moving dramatically, in a hockey stick fashion up through 2 to probably 3. And even if we hit 4, it's still, not quite it's not even close to a balanced market. And that's going to be short lived. There just seems to be this pause right now in the uncertainty. And if we do our job, when we do our job and we start communicating to people about the realities of the housing market, can we help them get off of the shtick and get moving?
Mm-hmm.
They're just uninformed right now. And they got the national media, and they see their 401k right now, and they hear all the talk about inflation. And heaven to Betsy, what's going to start happening around the end of August and early October or September? September, October, what are we going to be drowning in? Political ads. And they're all going to be negative, beating on the economy and everything else. And so the consumer is going to be very confused, and we have to be the person that helps unconfuse them, with our messaging and our emotions.
So is that 65,000 homes, does that include the apartment building stuff that's going up?
This is single family residential homes. Yeah. Single family residential homes.
apartments are finished.
They're in a shortage too. I mean, didn't we hear recently when we had somebody cancel a deal? Joe's not here. I think Tony, did we have somebody cancel a deal because the family couldn't find an apartment for their family or something? Yeah, this is like stuff like that. It's like, oh, right? Now I think maybe it's a school district. Now, construction cost, you're going, I was reading a builder update. This is an interesting thing to maybe possibly share with a buyer about, okay, builders have inventory that they want to get off the books. They do want to move inventory because they want cash flow. And there is a pause button. And so they're gonna make some deals right now. David Blagan gave me a great script. He said, I'm calling my database, and he said, I'm talking to my people, and he's going, hey, we need to talk. Builders are dealing right now. They got incentives, they got terms. If you're ready to get a house that you really want, this is the time for us to go get in the game. And he talked about talking to a KB rep who, I guess he had a list he had that had previous price, reduced price. And he's talking to the rep, and he said, yeah, there's a third column. It's called make us an offer. When have you heard that from a builder? All right, make us an offer. And so, and by the way, yeah, at the end of the day, is housing builder homes going to come down dramatically? Here's a graph that you can build a conversation about, and a consulting conversation is, the problem is all the stuff that goes into building a house is doing what? It's going up. And this is an opportunity for you to show them that impact and what's happening. Then this was an article from the Builders something or another that I read yesterday, the Builders Daily. Heading to normal. Some builder peers take bigger hits versus others. Now, this is national, it's not local. And yet, here's an interesting thing in their profile that they were doing. Notice this dark blue graph is raised most or all base prices. Now, so June of 21, the market, they said, oh, market is great. COVID didn't kick our butt. What'd they do? Most 78% of them raised most or all base prices. And then that kind of stuck for a while, but then you had others still raising. And then as we came into January 22, 64% raised most or all base prices, 60% in March. And look at what's happening now. Very few price raises. And yet look at the top. Let's look at June 22. 3% lowered most or all base, 13% lowered some, 33% base prices were unchanged. So they're not raising base prices, but they're kind of holding, and very few are lowering. And if we have a 65,000 home deficit here, how long lived are the deals going to be with builders? I think there's a 6 to 9 month, maybe 12-month opportunity right now. And so I think you have to build, we're going to build MOFRs and some of the stuff that we build for you around why now, and why not 24 months from now? Because everything Dotsauer said, my interpretation, and I had this conversation with somebody before we got on this call, it absolutely validated everything that I'm reading in the market, is that buyers have a 12-month window of having choices, having builders deal a little bit, maybe 12 months, maybe not 12 months, but that's probably the most, unless everything goes off the rails. There's that one qualifier, right? And they probably got 12 months. And then and because the builders are now pausing too, that means is there going to be inventory coming on at the pace that's needed to supply future? No, it's not. And so we're going to be right back into a low inventory, high competitive situation within the next 24 months. It's just going to happen. We don't have enough homes being built. And so things like this, how will this help a buyer? If you can pull stuff like this out and have a consultation with them, and we're going to talk about these consultations in some classes we're putting together so that you're having the right conversations today. How will this help a buyer? I'm sorry? Confidence they're making the right decision. Perfect. it's absolutely, when they're educated, this is time for, you're not a salesperson anymore, you're a consultant. And a consultant's got to educate people about the choices that they have the ability to make, and that they make good choices. That they don't go in having a false expectation of what they can go in the market and do. And you want a really good house that people still want, you might be one of 2 offers instead of 32 offers. And you got a better chance. Tony?
Steve, going back in our career, one thing that's worked for me in my business is I remember sitting in team meetings like this where Amy, myself, Sonia, and the other agents are here. We actually saw the development of Alabama. And going back to that graph on home prices, I remember the homes in Alabama Ranch were 135. And that's what that was 10, 15 years ago. We're going to setbacks and they're showing us nothing. Right, and these houses were 150 on the high. And you show that graph to any buyer that's on the fence. I don't care if you're overpaying by 20 grand. Stay there for 3 or 4 years, you're gonna get, you can't say that, but you show on that graph. Because you're gonna get that.
Yeah.
It's a great graph.
Dead on, Monique.
One of the things to just piggyback on what he said and what Dr. Dutzer said yesterday was, we may have gone at a fast pace the last few years, going on an increase of 20% in value. Now we're back down to 14, but what the Texas norm is 4 to 6%. So we're still able to educate our clients on, if they are questioning and all of this information that we're being given, you're still going to be, whether it's between 6% and 20%, we're still seeing the growth in value. So it is the right time to buy. It's never not the right time.
Yeah.
We're just different, with our laws compared to the other states. And that's what they're worried about. Like you said, is they're paying attention to their 401s and all of the media. And when, they need to just look at listening to us as being the right educators, right? On making the right decisions.
Well, and then what we have to do is we have to back it up, right? We back it up with these things that tell a story. And we're going to talk about how we're going to do that and how we're going to help you do that. Yeah. Is there a thought? Yeah.
I think it's what I got from Dr. Dutzer as well, as I think it's really important, is that things are going to get worse. The Fed needs to cause 2 million people to lose their jobs. So I think it's important to prepare people like, yeah, you buy now, you're going to get some bad headlines, but there's going to be more bad news coming. But this is part of the process to get back to where we need to be. We must go through this pain to get inflation down.
Yeah, and like he said, you're right, and he said Texas may wind up not participating.
Right.
And the not participating part is because that migration coming out of the parts of the country that are screwed up, right? And they're coming to Texas, the jobs are coming to Texas. We've got low tax environment, well, except for property taxes.
Yeah.
But there's that. This was an interesting graph, and this was where he talked about the amount of money in people's bank accounts, and you see the hockey stick. This is probably the biggest inflation driver right now, because 70% of the economy is who? The consumer. And consumers still have money to spend, to your point, right? It's like, how is he going to take that fuel out? There are a lot of people that just, recession, is there, and they're not having to make big lifestyle changes in the present moment. People are employed. That John Deere slide that he had on the union negotiations was a big deal, because if income rises to meet inflation, it's just more fuel into the economy, and the consumer is strong. That's what's fueled so much of this, is we have a strong consumer. And the people that lost their jobs during COVID were not the people that buy houses. They were hospitality industry, they were, music industry, they were people that weren't earning the big dollars that are buying inflated homes today. Most of those people stayed what? Working, gainfully employed. So as long as there's still money in people's pockets and they're employed, who's going to lose their job, we'll see. You know, it depends, and yet Texas may have a net gain, because here's an interesting graph. This is not from Dots Hour, and yet there's only 4 states that have now exceeded pre-pandemic employment. Texas is one of 4. So it's Utah, Idaho, Texas, and Arizona. And so is that a big deal? And so if I'm consulting a buyer, I might say, here's another thing to understand about what's going on here in our economy. That's the write-offs. We have a shortage of homes. We have strong employment growth versus what you see going on in other parts of the country. The foundation of making a choice today is solid. It's not guaranteed. We don't make guarantees, yes? Because you got people that can screw stuff up. And yet the fundamentals are here. So he talked about the motivations to buy a home. And then we're going to talk about who maybe we should be messaging or what our messaging might be today. Shelter. Got a new job, can afford more house. Have a baby, need more room. Got divorced, need less room. Need to get my spouse out of my face. Yeah, right. Spouse died, need less room. Don't like my neighborhood. And by the way, it goes back to that now having choices. Some people just stayed where they were because they couldn't find a place better to go. Aging owners moving into assisted living and want a second home where the weather's better. It's not 105. Investment, not so much right now, and yet still real estate's
Probably the best method.
still a safe play with the right buy. So motivations and opportunities for home sellers. So for actually just should say home sellers and buyers. I'm sorry. I didn't. So putting in buyers up there so you know this is. So let's talk about a MOFR. So if I'm going to build an offer for immediate response, I'm looking at who really should consider making a move right now. Would you say that right now a seller has a sincere chance to secure their forever home rather than the one they're in if it's not their forever home? Yeah. How many of you that have been around selling real estate the last 5 years sold buyers a home that was a compromise? Almost all of us, right? And that's just a phone call going, hey, I just wanted to check in. I know when we bought that house, that it wasn't really your dream house, and the things have kind of shifted. I thought, how's the house today? Has it grown on you? Or is there still maybe something different you're looking for? And if so, I think we ought to schedule a strategy session because you got some options now today. It's not goofy as it was. Do you want to get together? Simple conversation. Repurpose their equity. Can they still sell high? Yeah, and do something else with it. It's still a seller's market, yet we have a settling trend. So again, the ability to get sold is still there. Just got to make good decisions. They have less competition on the buy side, so that means they'll have a place to what? They got a place to go. Was that a fear for sellers?
Yeah.
You were talking earlier, people get out of their house. They don't get out of their house. Well, we thought about it, but we're going, where the hell would we go? Where would we replace what we have? I'm not willing to take that risk, and I don't want to build because of the build times and everything else. So not going to happen. And by the way, the best homes will likely still get multiple offers. Top 20% of the inventory will still be getting multiple offers. So the messaging points for buyers, same thing. They have a sincere chance to get their what? Forever home. Rents are still climbing, so they get to stop renting and what? Own a home. Inventories will dry up quickly post-recession. San Antonio still has a housing shortage of 65,000 units. We just saw that validated, yes? These are all conversations. And how do you build a message around this to get somebody into action? Builders are dealing, make an offer. Less competition, you have a chance. You get to an appraisal and inspection as well, right? So you take some of the risk out of the transaction today. Interest rates are actually at historical norms. No guarantee that they will come down. Does all that seem factual? Do you have evidence to support it? So now our job is to put that together into a conversation with would-be sellers, would-be buyers, people that might be sellers or buyers, that yet they don't know what they don't know. And our job is to get the message out. So here's one of the ways we're going to help you. Starting on August 4th, we're going to do a little thing, and it's going to be 12:45 to 1 o'clock on Thursdays, beginning August 4th, where we're going to go through one little market stat area, and we're going to tell you, here's a MOFR that you can build around it. And so we're calling it market stats and MOFRs. Now, you got a flyer and that will, it's got a QR code up here. So how you'll tune in for that and all of these things that are offered digitally is that's going to connect you to a Zoom link where you connect to what's on here. But let me tell you what's on here. Before we do that, what you take away from this overview of these graphs, and then we're going to go into some of the resources we're bringing to bear to help you. Talk to me. Is that
it's just a matter of changing it. So right now, a lot of buyers and sellers are panic and just giving them the clarity from the graphs to the insight, turn that around and they're like, not have to be anxious, refocus, just
Yeah.
so much opportunity. And even if whatever it may be, we're gonna find opportunity out there. So just changing that mindset.
So energy flows where the focus goes. So if they're focused on all the things that are negative or they're caught up in the media, the energy goes fear, 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 and nobody's educating them on, we talk about in Never Ending Referrals being the trusted advisor, the local economist of choice. Now, by the way, you have this handout right here that's the 6 lessons of Never Ending Referrals. Next week, we are beginning this again. It's going to be Tuesdays at 6 weeks. It's Tuesday from 10 to 12:30. Even if you've taken Never Ending Referrals before, the conversation is going to be built around the market of right now. How do you make all the database strategies that we teach in Never Ending Referrals work for the market of today? There's only about, I think we can only see like 47 people in the training room where we're going to hold this. The QR code takes you to the Eventbrite to sign up. We start next Tuesday. And so it's first come, first serve. There's no charge. And yet I do want to ask that you're committing for the 6 weeks, once a week, Tuesdays, 10 to 12:30. And we'll be at Align Mortgage over here, just right off of De Zavala, kind of back in that little complex. So one of the things that is where you're going to win the day today is with the relationships you have. How are we going to build your messaging so that you're the expert and they trust you? They listen to you, they ask you for guidance, and you're able to kind of help them navigate the market. So if you've not taken Never Ending Referrals, or even if you have, I suggest that you join me and we get started on that journey, make it a priority. Let's go to your other handout of upcoming events. So you've got Never Ending Referrals there. You've got the handout, what we'll be covering the 6 weeks. On the 27th here in Learning Center B, we've got AutoConnect introduction. Our messaging in our AutoConnect program, which is a combination of direct mail and digital marketing, is going to be very focused, as it has been, on market trends and how people should respond to these trends. So we're going to build those messages into the marketing. If you're not at a place right now where you can invest in print marketing to your database, hold on, I've got something for you on that too. Okay. On the 28th, be hybrid, it'll be Learning Center B, and it'll be on that Zoom link. Find your fortune with for sale by owners. In fact, at noon today, I have an interview with one of the top for sale by owner converters in the country, and I'll be making some of those resources available for you from that interview. Would that be cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And by the way, does anybody know what we used to teach in Bold back in the day, what FSBO stood for? It's not for sale by owner. Fastest source of business opportunity. They got their hand up. They said they're ready to sell it. Now we're going to be taking. Now, how many want to love buyers again? It was hard to love them when you had to write 13 offers for them to get a house, right? It got a little old after a while. And so on August 2nd and 9th, from 1 to 5, Michelle Campbell and I will be taking our buyers program that she has written, and we're going to focus on it for the market of the moment. You know, what are the adjustments? And there may be some pre-work there. We will be sending out a link for you to register for that because we'll have limited space. And so watch for Love Buyers again. When you see it come up on Facebook or an email, get signed up. So we're going to dive into, you know, all these buyer consultations, you know, how you make it work today. August 4th, we're going to do an hour session. This is Thursdays, by the way. This is on Thursday. Right after the launch session, we're going to have hot days, cold doors, and big bucks, mastering door knocking and neighboring. So how do you take these messages and get them out in your neighborhood? How do you get them out just purely in door knocking? Backside, I love this one. Firstborn, second spouse, third realtor. Expired listings, mastered, then expired and canceled. We used to always have the saying, yeah, it's best to be the firstborn, second spouse, third realtor. By the time you get this third realtor, they what? Get right on the price and terms. Another boot camp. This is in person only. Never ever be listless again. And I love this old saying: old realtors never die; they just go listless. There you go. Oh, come on, that was a little funny, right? Come on. Yeah. A 2-day boot camp. It'll be the 16th and 30th of August. Michelle and myself. We're really updating all the listing conversations for what you're dealing with today. The pricing conversations for what you're dealing with today. That'll be one that we'll send out a registration. You'll need to register in advance to make sure that we've got room for you. There'll be some pre-work. Janelle, we're going to have on the 25th, Tech Lead Generation, Conversion, and Nurturing 101. And what is the 1 or 2 simplest ways that you can generate traffic from Facebook, Google Ads, you know, not make it complicated. What did we say earlier in the last session? Complicated is too big of a what? Complication. So how do we do it simple? Let's get digital. Late July, which is almost here. It's kind of here. We publish for our AutoConnect folks. We publish a digital piece as a smart plan that they download. They're able to send as an email to their database. So what we do in AutoConnect right now is we do 2 mailing pieces and 1 digital. Now think about that: 2 mailing pieces a month and 1 digital piece a month. That's 3 pieces a month. How many touches a year? 36. MREA says how many times should you touch them? 36. Now you had your DTD2, you got 40 touches. Now you have an opportunity, if you do AutoConnect full boat and the digital, have 52 touches, because we're going to add a second digital piece each month. So essentially, and it's the market of the moment. Here's what's happening. Here's Mr. and Ms. Consumer, what you might want to know or do. And we're making it available for everybody, whether you're in AutoConnect or not. And we're doing that for the next 90 days or so. We're going to make that available to you. So at least you have that as something you can start getting out to your database, and it doesn't cost you a cent. You just have to what? Get it out. So there you go. And then market stats and MOFRs, we just talked about that. That's Thursdays. Right on there begins August 4th. Because if you come this next Thursday, I won't be there. And when we send that out, so we'll go through the MOFRs and we'll be complete with step-by-step instructions on how to use the stats and the MOFRs that we give you some graphs, give you some tools. I think that's kind of covers highlights.
You were busy in the last 36 hours.
That's how we got us motivated,
I know,
man.
you got us all
Let's
fired
go. Well, and all this, guys, is the pivot to what is. We sat down as a team and we said, what do we need to bring to the front right now that's going to equip you guys? I was on a conversation with a gentleman yesterday about Pasadena, California. He's a team leader, and he goes, I've never seen a shift before. You know, I've been in the business since 2013, I think he said. This is the first time I've ever experienced anything different. For many of you, you've never seen a change in the market. There are conversations you're not aware of that in these kind of changes you really should be having to make sure that your sellers have a great experience and give you a 5-star review, that your buyers have a great experience and give you a 5-star review, and that you set the proper expectations so you have happy people. And then, of course, how do we make lead generation work again? We're hearing from some of the teams that have to do the Zillow stuff. the faucet is just turned to a drip. Because the consumer's sitting there, just they're voyeur, they're still looking, they're voyeuring, looking at stuff, but they don't know if I don't know if I want to press the button right now. I'm kind of wait and see. We have to educate people, and so we're gonna help you do it. By the
Hey
way,
guys, can I jump in? It's Jada.
hey, you're there.
Hi.
I want to say just a couple things before we stop because I wish so bad I could have been there. But guys, I want to tell you guys something. I am excited about this market. I truly am. Why? Because sellers are still going to sell at the top of the market. And now the buyers don't have to give them their first child or their arm or whatever else that they were asking for prior. So really, there's more opportunity now than ever. And what Sonia was saying earlier about in the beginning of 2020, we experienced a shift in the beginning of 2020. You know, I personally was like, oh my goodness, I'm either going to sink or I'm going to swim. And, you know, had to plug in. The market center is amazing. That is what we need to do right now. We are going through a shift, but let me tell you something. It is a different shift than what we went through in the beginning of 2020. Why? Because we are not shutting down. There's more opportunity now that we can actually go out there and show up. So all we need to do is come together and talk about these things. I love everything that you said, Steve. I'm putting all of this into my business as well. But I want us to get excited about it. I don't want us to be fearful because I don't believe there's anything for us to be fearful in this shift. I think we need to be the economist for our clients. We need to be the trusted advisor. We need to tell them all of the things that we learned today and tell them, if you want a house, I can help you. This is the time. So
And by the
you want
way,
to sell your house, don't worry. You didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. You're still selling on the top of the market.
and by the way, if your database isn't dialed in 11, if it isn't dialed into 2, you know, or if it's somewhere in the middle, this will help you.
Yes.
And this program is one of the top group programs at Keller Williams, Never Ending Referrals. And it's taught in market centers all over the country. And the database content in bold comes from Never Ending Referrals. If you want to master all this at a high level, get with me Tuesday and sign up today, because as soon as it's full, it's full. And if you don't master this, you're setting yourself up for just struggle. And it's this little uncomfortable place at times where you go, oh, it's a mess and I just haven't dealt with it. But you get to begin now. There's no better time to begin than right now to start to dial that in. So I'm expecting a full class. And if it's even on your brain to do, I want you to sign up right now. And just, you know, go to that QR code, make that happen. I want to have you in there with me. If you've taken it before and you haven't mastered this, then be in there again. Put yourself in the environment. We're gonna go accountable in it. We're gonna keep score. We're gonna have a lot of different conversations we've had in the past because the things have changed.
And if you are not aware, he is the co-author of this program that goes across the country. We have him in our space.
Mhm.
So do you think he's an expert in that conversation? You need to be there.
All right. Any last words?
Sign up.
We're over. Any last words? Any last words from you guys? We got to put the QR code back up there because they got to rate this session too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're going to give some more stuff away next time. So Margie.
Starts next week. So last week, that's what should be up by want to sign up, whatever. I will make it work for you. Okay? So if you want to sign up, let me know. Otherwise, I don't know that very hard, but let me know and I will make it work for you.
So they won't get a naughty note then? Is that how that's how it's okay? Yeah. I would love to have you in there, guys. That would be perfect. If you'll give us a review on how we did today with this program, keep this handy. We'll start putting this up on the social channels as well. But no, you know, just take a look at what you have coming up. The most recent thing is going to be Auto Connect introduction next week. So if you want to get a robust marketing plan going, come find out what it is. And then we'll have Find Your Fortune with FSBOs next week on Thursday. Yes, sir. Just call it launch.
Yeah, group coaching.
Group
Yeah.
launch, or group coaching, whatever it is. Yeah. So that'll be fine. Yes,
So is this you, never ending, is it you?
it's gonna be a line mortgage, at a line mortgage. So which is right over here off of Days of Olive for easy reference. Yeah. Like less than 10 minutes from here.
Yeah.
You want to tell them what you got in store for team meeting? Because we'll take a break and
Yeah,
then
we're
they come
gonna take
back.
a little break and then y'all come back for team meeting and we have Yvonne Terrassa and Katie Hahn. Who's back there. And they are going to be sharing with you, all the reasons why you want to work with builders. And all the ins and outs with builders. And we actually have a couple builders I think come as well too. So it's gonna be a good conversation. So make sure you guys come back for it. And we have food trucks coming at 12. So as soon as we're done with team meeting, you can go out and eat.
Yay, yay,
Today.
food is good. And I'm gonna go interview for sale by owner expert. So
Woohoo!
there, have a great one, guys.
Steve,
Yes.
before you leave.